Welcome to Introduction to Game Production. I'm Jim. In this lesson, we're going to discuss the deployment phase, which is launching our game. Let's get started. The deployment phase can be one of the most exciting times of the project. Being properly prepared for the launch of your game drastically improves the success of the launch. You want to make sure that you have all the pieces in place, and there's a lot of additional planning that you need to consider before launching your game. And we'll discuss this throughout this lesson. Like all the other phases we've discussed so far, you want to begin the deployment phase with a meeting to ensure that everyone is aligned going into this phase. During this meeting, we'll define phase deliverables. We'll establish a phase timeline, which also includes some time directly following the launch to ensure that your team is ready for any unforeseen issues related to the launch of your game. You'll also want to define a meeting cadence for this launch phase, and everyone on the team should be aware of their responsibilities, so you'll want to spend some time during this meeting making sure that everyone is aligned. And I'd like to start this lesson with some research right off the bat. You may have already considered this during the planning phase or during the resource requirements phase, but what are some common places where video games are released? And what are the costs associated with releasing on those platforms? Do you have all the required materials ready to launch on each of your target platforms? And in some cases, some platforms may require a waiting period between when the page is set up and when the game can actually be launched. In some cases, this could even be up to a month or two. So you want to make sure that you're properly planning for this launch and that you've given enough time to get all of the deliverables ready to hit that target launch date. So I challenge you to pause the video here and take a few minutes to research each of these questions, and I'll see you when you come back. When we're talking about the deployment phase deliverables, obviously the number one deliverable is going to be a shipped game. All of the work that we've been doing on all the various teams so far has led to this point. So we want to make sure that that final product is the best possible product that we could provide at this phase of the project. We also want to define the marketing collateral that we need to properly market our game to the public. And when it comes to product messaging, it should support your brand. So you want to make sure that the product fits into your brand image. And when we talk about the deployment timeline, even though your game will have a target launch date, the deployment phase could actually last months when you consider advertising and product messaging and all the other various things that go into launching your game. And it's also important with this timeline that you're leaving some of the staff available to support the launch and clearing up any unforeseen issues related to the launch. For instance, if on launch day all of your servers go down, you want to make sure that you have the required staff available to get those servers back up and running as fast as possible. During the deployment phase, there may not be a need for as many meetings as previous phases, but you should have some communication cadence within your teams and maybe a few meetings here and there just to make sure that you have some checkpoints and that everyone is aligned to support pre-launch, the launch itself, and post-launch. And like I said, there may be unforeseen issues during the launch, so it's important that the team is still on standby to support anything that they need to during the launch. Now, when it comes to team responsibilities during the deployment phase, most of your team will still need to be available to provide support. So your programming team is going to need to fix any unforeseen bugs or any issues with the technical infrastructure of your game. They may need to be available for hot fixes or patches of the game post-launch. If there's any game-breaking bugs, this could be a huge detriment to your project, and you want to make sure that you're able to address them quickly and get the game back up and running. The design team likely won't have a lot to work on, so they could assist with playtesting, they could assist with bug reporting, or they could also be spending time validating gameplay after bug fixes are implemented that the game is still working as intended. Now, it's also common that you may have some issues related to graphics or art assets in your game, so the art team can be available to assist with any issues related to that. Your QA team should be fully staffed up during this point, and they should be ready to handle any bugs that are coming in and address them immediately. Now, as the producer, your primary goal is to manage the deployment schedule and make sure that you have all the deliverables required and that everyone else understands their responsibilities and is available to assist. And your marketing team is going to be working hard during this phase to provide marketing support to ensure that your product is adequately advertised through all the appropriate channels. And your community manager will be likely addressing issues within your game's community as well. And at the end of the deployment phase, we want to have a deployment phase review meeting. And this won't necessarily be aligned with the actual launch date of your project. It could be a few weeks or even months after the actual launch date. So you want to pick a time somewhere in the future after the launch has stabilized, all of the immediate fires have been put out, and you want to regroup with the team for this deployment phase review meeting. And we want to assess, was the game launched successfully? Did we meet all the requirements? Are there any lessons that we can learn for next time? And this is a really good time to have a quick check-in while everyone's memory is still fresh. We want to review the timeline and budget and make sure that we stuck to our original timeline and budget. We want to review the resources, and at this point it may be a good time to address what resources could be moved to other projects and what resources we need for ongoing support of the game. And ultimately, we want to make a decision of whether we're ready to move to the maintenance phase of our project. And like I said, this is typically when resources are going to be needed for other projects. And as the producer, you need to determine what is the core staff required, or what are the core competencies that need to remain available to support the maintenance phase of your game. And just like all the other phases, we want to make a determination of whether we want to stop, which may mean that we don't proceed to the maintenance phase in some cases if the launch was not successful. Now, we hope this isn't the case because you've already invested a lot of time into this, and they may just say that they've determined that the project was not successful and they just want to stop it at this point. A determination also may be made that we're not ready to proceed to the maintenance phase, that we still have a lot of issues that we need to address, that we need to maintain a larger team to provide ongoing support, and we're not quite ready to move into that maintenance phase. And the final determination will be that the launch was a success, that the team can be moved to other priorities, and that we can proceed into that maintenance phase. And this is what we'll discuss in the next lesson. Thanks for watching.